Remind you, listening to a special edition, John DePietro and the WPRO Morning News, Decision 2010, the general election debates. They're brought to you interruption-free by Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts, America runs on Dunkin'. A reminder, video of this event is being offered, 630WPRO.com, and you can text your votes on who you think is winning. Text the word vote to 68683. And we continue. Mayor Cicilline, let's get back to the Social Security. Aren't you playing scared the senior? I mean, clearly there's a demographic problem with Social Security, and at some point we're going to have to visit the issue of reforming Social Security. Look, you're promising these people that you're visiting that you're not going to make any changes to it. I mean, isn't it irresponsible?
No,
to
I'm
say
promising
that?
these seniors that I'm visiting with and people who care about Social Security, veterans, and those who with disabilities, that I will fight to protect this program. This was begun 75 years ago because it reflected our values as a nation, that we wanted to be sure that our seniors and those who rely on Social Security had the security of knowing that they could live with dignity and with the assurance that they could live free from the anxiety of worrying about the basic necessities of life. The program is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. The Social Security trustees, when they make their projections, they say, if we make no changes, the program can go through 2037. And in fact, they use 2% economic growth in those calculations. Which is below the historic average for this country, if we grow the economy at 3%, Social Security can continue indefinitely. And so we have to protect it, we have to fight for it. We cannot. I would fight with every fiber of my body against privatization of any kind. When you start taking the system and putting part of it into the private stock market, you are destabilizing the program. And there are ways to strengthen it, and it's about priorities. It's about saying that's going to be a priority for this country. And so voters have a right to know.
Is there any reform that you would support? Is there any reform at all?
I think that we have to look at the Social Security system, and one of the things that we have to look at is how do we ensure that there is sufficient resources to fund the program. And the best way to do it, the single best way, is to get our economy back on track. Because if we get our economy back on track, get people working again, and have economic growth at 3%, the problem is gone. And that's what we need to be doing by repealing tax breaks that are shipping our jobs overseas. Representative Laughlin signed a pledge. That's one way to do it. Keep the jobs here in Rhode Island, in the United States. He signed a pledge to continue to give corporations tax breaks that are shipping our jobs overseas. That's wrong. We need to keep the jobs here.
Representative Laughlin.
Yeah, you talk about keeping jobs here in Rhode Island, Mayor. You don't believe in keeping jobs in Rhode Island. You spent over $1 million with an out-of-state PR agency to represent the city of Providence. You spent $100,000 to have a P designed with a Nashville company, and even your Made in Rhode Island's commercial was made in Washington, D.C. It seems that you don't have the faith in Rhode Island businesses to be able to do these tasks and do them well. And I think that Rhode Islanders deserve the ability to compete for those jobs and to be able to grow our economy right here at home.
What reform, though, would you support in social? Is there anything you would support?
I think we need to take a look at the entire system. I think what's jeopardizing the system right now is that it's the out-of-control spending in Washington. See, it was the Democrats in the 1960s that put the Social Security Trust Fund into the general fund. And the Nancy Pelosi Congress has been spending at a rate of 84% growth during the last 2 years in non-defense discretionary spending. And that's what is jeopardizing senior Social Security. And it goes back to, the agenda. I mean, Mayor Cicilline supports cuts in Medicare, and that's a program that seniors depend on. He supports $500 billion cuts in Medicare, and the chief actuary says that the out-of-pocket expenses will rise for 67,000 seniors.
That is absolutely false. There is no $500 billion cut in Medicare. There's a cut to insurance companies, and there's an elimination of fraud and waste. There is absolutely no cut to health care to seniors. And frankly, for that claim to come from someone who's called Social Security a Ponzi scheme and who has pledged to try to privatize it is a little hard to take. Seniors rely on Social Security. They rely on its solvency. They rely on a commitment that you're going to be in Washington to fight to protect it. And it's very hard for anyone who cares about Social Security to have confidence that someone like Representative John Laughlin would go to Washington to fight for something he doesn't really believe in.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Hummel, question for Representative Laughlin, please.
Representative Laughlin, in 1996, a newly minted congressman named Bob Wagan took his seat, and it was at the height of the Newt Gingrich Congress. And, I've had discussions with him. During those 4 years, it was an exercise in futility. He was number 435 of 435. And you have been, by all accounts, a backbencher in the General Assembly. So if you go to Congress, regardless of all we talk around this table, how do you assure Rhode Islanders that you being probably 435 of 435, of course, the Republicans could take over, but let's go with the assumption that they don't. Mayor Cicilline has been to Washington, I don't know how many times the last couple of years, gone to the White House, has the Democratic contacts. If you take it just from a let's get the bacon for Rhode Island alone and put all of these ideas aside, why shouldn't we send him to Congress? Because he's got the contacts to bring the bacon home.
Well, I think even the most pessimistic analysts indicate that this is going to be a Republican House, possibly a Republican senator. We have 3 members of our congressional delegation that are in the Democratic Party now. Wouldn't it make sense for Rhode Island to have at least one member of the majority party to be able to bring home the bacon for Rhode Island? I have a history of working across party lines to get effective results for my constituents, and I'm happy to share some of those with you. And so I definitely take exception to your characterization that I'm a backbencher in the Rhode Island House.
I think certainly one of the important responsibilities of any member of Congress is to go and to be sure that you bring back to your district and to your state the kind of federal investments that are happening at the port and that are happening to help create jobs here in Rhode Island. And that's something I understand. Representative John Laughlin actually made a statement on Sean Hannity that he would not accept any earmarks and not bring back resources to the state of Rhode Island. I think that's one of our responsibilities is to be sure that it's smart investment and that it's making a difference, but to bring back resources to help create jobs, to invest in infrastructure, to repair our economy, to address the urgent needs of our seniors. So I would go there and fight very hard and as effectively as I could to bring back as many resources to our great state to help get us out of this recession.
Representative?
Yeah, again, I mean, I've got a record of being able to accomplish results for my constituents, and I would bring that record to Washington. I have the ability to work across party lines, but again, frankly, I think we're going to be, again, even the most pessimistic forecasts indicate that it's going to be a Republican House, and I think it makes sense for Rhode Islanders to make sure that we're well represented in Washington with a member of the majority party.
Thank you,
But can you-
Representative.
can you
I'm
ask-
going to have Arlene Violet
Okay,
ask you a
yeah.
question.
Sorry.
Ms.
Thank
Violet, if
you.
can ask the mayor a
Mrs.
question.
Cicilline, can you just bring yourself to honestly acknowledge that having a police driver is really a perk of your office? There's no other state official, including the Attorney General, who probably would most likely have to have an escort episodically from time to time. And when there are threats, of course, you have that security 24/7 police officers, in my case, the state police, outside at your home. They check the restroom before you go in. There's no such thing as going any place without them, etc. In your case, of course, they drop you at the gym. They don't go in. They don't check the locker room, etc. So even as you claim that Chief Esserman, told you that this was a good thing to do or that you needed it, after 4 years, you're his boss. Why is it that you didn't take a look at that issue and say, they could have bumped me off here in the gym. They could shoot me out in my house when nobody is there, and just drop, what I perceive as a facade that this is all about your safety, and just admit that it's a perk.
Look, Arlene, this is the security team that is assigned to the mayor of the capital city has existed as far as anyone can remember.
Well, it's a perk. That's I'm not saying you're the only one.
No,
but,
no. Let me just.
But
Can
you, sir? Are there all these safety threats against
No,
you that require
listen,
this, or what?
The mayor of the capital city has been assigned a security detail, as I said, since anyone can remember. That's a determination the police department makes.
But sir, you're the boss. You're the Commissioner of Public
understand, but
Safety. After a while, didn't it dawn on you,
No.
for example, in the locker room at your gym, did it not dawn on
Arlene,
you, gee, if anybody wanted to bump me off, they could do it here?
The security detail is with me from the time I begin my day to the time I end it. That's a determination the department makes.
They're not at your home, are they?
No,
They don't go to a club with you.
At the
They
end of the day,
don't.
they leave me at my home. But my point is,
They don't go into a club. They don't go into the gym, do they?
No, they don't go into places where they drop me and they stay with me. Where they go is a determination they make as police officers. Is it part of a perk of a job? There is no questions. It's assigned to the mayor as part of being mayor of the city of Providence. The same way the state police are assigned to the governor for being governor of the state of Rhode Island. The same way they drive him and they remain with him. The Providence police does it with the mayor of the city of Providence. Period.
John Laughlin.
Yeah, my concern is not so much about the excessive cost to the taxpayers of $500,000 annually for a personal chauffeur. My concern is more about the breach of integrity and using that personal chauffeur to make campaign appearances, which you did, Mayor, in Tiverton. You drove down at Tiverton, it was only Jim Hummel that caught you, and then that's when you decided to pay the money back. And that represents a pattern. You know, you illegally took a $20,000 raise and only gave it back when you got caught. You promised the residents of Providence you wouldn't raise taxes, not one dime in the parking meters, and then property taxes go up. It's a failure. It's a consistent failure of integrity.
Well, first of all, that's an absolutely false claim. And I would first begin by saying these are sworn officers of the Providence Police Department. Referring to them as private chauffeurs is really inappropriate. Number two, when this campaign first began, for a very short period of time, I did not use a campaign vehicle because I didn't have one. This all happened quickly. And when the car was used, I reimbursed the city for the mileage, period.
When you got caught.
The moment the campaign began in full swing, there was a campaign vehicle that has been used consistently. I think what the public is tired of is listening to this sort of petty politics. We are facing the 4th highest unemployment rate in the country. We're dealing with a housing crisis. We're dealing with record unemployment.
Thank you, Mayor. We can get back
That's
to
what people want.
Thank you. A quick question for Representative Laughlin. President Obama on the campaign trail and trying to exhort his Democratic followers to get excited and get out there, urged them to not let Americans have amnesia, suggesting that the Republicans got the country into the mess that he says that he inherited. What are your thoughts to people out there who say that I'm not going to vote for a Republican like John Laughlin? They're the party that originally got us into trouble, that led us into wars, and that led us into the financial crisis when the administration was Republican and at least part of Congress was Republican.
Clearly that's not the case. I mean, if you look at just non-defense discretionary spending during the Obama administration, it went up 84%. That's unprecedented. That's never happened in the history of our nation before. And that really imperils our future. It imperils our growth as a country. It imperils our economy. If you look at the health care legislation that was put through in a completely partisan manner, with any sort of bipartisanship, that includes $500 billion in new taxes, huge cuts to Medicare that seniors depend on. That was done certainly not by the Bush administration. And if you want to look at the wars, I was not in a position to be able to make a judgment call on whether or not the wars were valid. I was affected by
So the Republicans had nothing to do with the challenges that President...
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. The economy was certainly in bad shape, but I think clearly this administration and this Congress has made it much, much worse, and that's the Congress that my opponent seeks to join and to support.
Look, there's no question. When President Clinton turned over this leadership of this country to President Bush, we had record employment, some of the best employment in the history of the country, record surpluses, the biggest surplus in the history of the country. When it was turned over to President Obama by President Bush, we had the worst deficit in the history of the country and the worst unemployment. So the truth is, and what's really frightening is what Representative Laughlin is arguing for is to go back to the same policies of the wild, wild west on Wall Street, of giving corporations unlimited power in Washington, of the unregulated financial industry that caused this mess, and sort of get out of the way. He keeps saying the government should just get out of the way. Getting out of the way is what caused these problems. In an unregulated, unsupervised economy that almost brought us to financial collapse. We cannot give power back to the Republicans who led that effort.
Representative Laughlin.
Yeah, clearly this is an administration that Nancy Pelosi's Congress has led to unprecedented, literally unprecedented levels of spending that really is going to put our country in a terrible hole. We're literally spending money we don't have, and we're borrowing money from the Chinese government, among others, that we may never be able to afford to pay back. And it's this sort of reckless administration that has, I think, really put us on a path that's going to jeopardize our future. And we've got to change course, and we've got to do it right away.